They think this is something. But did they see Lloyd Banks?
I haven't had communication with Banks for a long period of time, right?
He couldn't even tell you, like, at any point when you speak to him, what a problem. I put him, like, where I put Marquise.
You and Banks are not hanging out at the strip club.
50 Cent takes some responsibility for Lloyd Banks for toting Ayo.
What responsibility? Like a parent?
You're the leader.
What responsibility am I taking for him? Like, explain to me.
That you didn't encourage them to be independent
Nah,
sooner.
that's not true.
Lloyd Banks is talking about his relationship with 50 Cent, and he is speaking straight to the years of disdain, the lies, and the Wafties' rewriting of their history this time. When G-Unit first came out, it was one of the most powerful hip-hop trends. Of course, 50 was the face. In interviews, 50 began disparaging Banks, accusing him of being sluggish and claiming that his desire for achievement was not strong enough. In his book, he even made fun of him, acting as though Banks had given up on himself. And Banks said nothing at the time. Up until today, there were no clapbacks or social media tirades. Banks recently addressed all of this in an interview. He is obviously finished allowing 50 to steer the conversation. Additionally, he says that during the most trying times in his life, 50 was not there, and that the label of lazy was not just incorrect, it was disgusting. The fact that Banks continued to work over this entire period may be the most problematic aspect, not in the manner that 50 anticipated. Naturally, he did not take that lightly because 50 was 50. He retaliated immediately and disparaged Lloyd. What actually occurred then? What caused the G-Unit connection to become so toxic? And in this case, who is speaking the truth, Lloyd or 50? Let us begin.
The guy has Lazy Lloyd tattooed on his arm. He literally wears his laziness on his sleeve. He's always projected an unhelpful mixture of being both introverted and cocky at the same time.
Lloyd Banks remained silent about his rift with 50 Cent for years. However, Lloyd made the decision to correct the record after 50 recently shot him without any provocation. In a behind-the-scenes video shared on Instagram at a recent tour stop, 50 Cent mentioned Lloyd and Young Buck by name. It seemed as though he was making fun of Lloyd's lack of success.
They think this is something. But did they see Lloyd Banks?
You see, this is the primary distinction between Lloyd and 50. Lloyd avoids using social media, being petty during interviews, and throwing strange tasks at 50. He did, however, finally answer things when he was recently asked about his connection with 50 Inch, a rare interview. For 10 years, 50 has been promoting a sloppy narrative, rumors, and contempt. Additionally, it was evident that he was not merely venting his old grudge. It was a personal matter. Straight up, Banks said. He was grieving, not being lazy. Banks had recently lost his father when 50 called him unmotivated. He was dealing with real-life issues, and rather than receiving help, he was publicly disparaged. And repeatedly, not once. Memes, books, and interviews make up the entire campaign.
So, Banks' temperament was definitely a little crazy. I'm not saying anything here that I haven't said to Banks directly. Another time I sat down with him, just when IG was starting to pop off, and tried to drop this gem on him. You gotta get on Instagram, I encouraged him. You can be a little awkward in person, so this is actually a better way for you to communicate with people. Nah, I don't want to do it, he said. Why not? You can literally put punchlines under your pictures, make some new fans. Nah, that's corny, he told me. When Banks made that comment to me, I realized he had gone as far as he can go. In fact, my exact thought was, this is someone I can't invest another minute or $1 in.
But Banks claims that 50 was never there for him in that way, not when things were tough and crucial, and that had a more profound effect than any diss tune. Additionally, Lloyd denied that he fell off. Banks has released 3 complete albums since 2021, including the course of the Inevitable series. Yes, it had raw bars and consistency, but there were no radio songs or huge label pushes. Banks never stopped rapping, if you have been listening. It all started when he simply quit playing the industry game. 50 did not want Banks to become an artist. He is not showy, he is not fixated on being seen, and he is not interested in being viral. He is a rapper's rapper who prioritizes skill over influence. But that is also what initially turned 50 against him. Because you are dead weight in the 1952nd if you are not contributing to the expansion of the empire. Banks, too? He no longer aimed to be a soldier. Banks, 50, and Tony Yayo met in South Jamaica, Queens. To give you some background on how this all began, these connections were not created by the industry. Using music as a means of upward mobility, they were neighborhood youngsters attempting to make it out. and 50 took his people with him when he made a big splash with Get Rich or Die Trying. Furthermore, G-Unit was a brand and a way of life in addition to the group. Fans praised Banks for his icy delivery and witty language, even though 50 had the charisma and hooks. He was a legendary mixtape artist, the Cold Corner series, Money in the Bank, etc. He then released The Hunger for More in 2004. In less than a month, that album achieved platinum status. On Fire was well received. Classic Banks' Karma I Am So Fly. The entire G-Unit empire appeared to be rising at that time. You had Banks establishing himself as a genuine MC, 50 dominating the charts, Yayo doing his thing, and then Young Buck and Game. The chemistry seemed unbreakable everywhere in video games, music, clothes, even Reebok deals. Additionally, Banks was contributing to the wave's creation rather than only writing it. The sound was shaped in part by his enthusiasm and voice. Early on, even 50 would acknowledge that Banks was among the group's best pure rappers. During all of that, Banks began to retreat. As everyone knows, Banks was never the loudest person in the room, but today he was hardly present. Additionally, there was no noise or disturbance from the fallout, but it was easy to see how far 50 was from Banks. Things began to change as the energy changed after the early G-Unit wave. The ensemble began to resemble individual acts sharing a brand rather than moving as a cohesive unit. Additionally, 50 claims that there is no possibility that G-Unit would ever re-establish itself because of the chaos that occurred between them all. As a result, Banks began to distance himself from the spotlight, ceased giving press appearances, and stopped attending events for the 52nd. And it appeared to fans that he no longer cared.
I had communication with Banks for a long period of time, right?
He couldn't even tell you, like, at any point when you speak to him, what a problem. I put him, like, where I put Marquise.
You and Banks are not hanging out at the strip club,
No, he goes though.
but you don't go.
No, I don't see me there. We went to Atlantic City. We was in it was a showcase. They expect a show to happen
Performance.
tonight. Yeah, we will see you at the show tonight. And I go, oh, they expecting a show. Like, I was like, yo, call all of them, tell them to come here. When I asked Banks, like, when you go to perform your shows, you don't do this song? This is the hardest record on your And he's like, why? Cause you want it? I looked at it and I was like, trying to understand where he was coming from. He had been on my last record. He's like, I ain't been on your record, this and that. And I was like, so what? You don't have to be on none of my record. Like, me being on your record is the favor. I put you on a record with Eminem on my first album, fool. Don't nobody even know you. We were anticipating success, not as much success as we actually had. And it would have been sufficient if we had the success.
In one interview, 50 chastised Banks for not using social media and claimed that he had potential but lacked hustle. He had no interest in playing the visibility game or getting involved in industry politics. And that made him real to certain fans. 50 took it a step further in the book by claiming that Yayo and Banks were both unable to change and were mired in the past. He called Banks out by name, claiming that he did not want to progress and was too comfortable. He essentially presented him as a gifted but underutilized individual who had the potential to be very successful but failed to do so.
Banks was around 14 years old when Biggie and Pac were both popping. So that makes sense that they still resonate with him so deeply. I can relate. I still love the music from when I was that age too. The difference is I haven't patterned my career after KRS-One and Coogee Rap. What would be the point of that? They were both incredible in their moment. But I've always been concerned about creating my own moment rather than copying theirs. Years ago, I told Banks to film a video of his life and post it on YouTube. Introduce people to his lifestyle. Let the camera follow him around for a while and see how he moves. Maybe something he says or does will create a spark, go viral, and then he'll have some heat around him again. What I didn't want him to do was sit there writing punchline after punchline and then grow resentful when no one seemed to care about his mixtapes anymore. They say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Before adding Biggie and Pac didn't do that. They're dead, my man, I told him. They died before this stuff was even invented. And how do you know they wouldn't be posting on IG if they were alive? It was a line of thinking that really blew my mind. It suggested that if Tupac was alive, he'd still be wearing leather vests and red bandanas tied around his head, sending girls his beeper number. Or that Biggie would still be wearing Coogee sweaters and playing Mortal Kombat 2 every night. In Banks' case, a lot of his failure to grow as an artist is connected to his emotional composition. Banks grew up in the same neighborhood as me, but was never a part of it in the same way. I actually hustled with his father. Banks was more content staying on his porch and watching the world from there. There's nothing wrong with that, but it underscored a particular aspect of his personality. Banks wanted things to come to him, as opposed to going out and getting them for himself. That's not me trying to assassinate his character. The guy has Lazy Lloyd tattooed on his arm. He literally wears his laziness on his sleeve. He's always projected an unhelpful mixture of being both introverted and cocky at the same time. The kind of person most comfortable being a big fish in a small pond. If Banks was hanging out in the studio with a bunch of unknown MCs, he'd be very confident. He'd enjoy being the center of attention. But if I suddenly showed up, he'd feel like he got demoted. He'd be bitter. He didn't feel like the center of attention anymore. I get it. I can take up a lot of the air in the room. The problem is that he'd never fight to get some of that oxygen back, which is exactly what a star is supposed to do. I believe a true star must possess 4 fundamental abilities: create great material, be a high-energy live performer, have a unique appearance, and possess a strong personality. Tupac had all 4. So does Mary J. Blige. Chris Brown, too. If I'm being honest in evaluating Banks, he possesses maybe one of those qualities.
For the first time, officially distanced himself from Banks with this book. Fans believe that Banks addressed the issue in his song Stranger Things, even though he did not openly address it. And Lloyd and 50 are at odds over precisely this. For Lloyd, being extremely well known does not equate to success, and he is at the right place. Rather, success is being able to support your family while doing what you love. Furthermore, Lloyd admitted to being lazy as soon as he had the Lazy Lloyd tattoo. In interviews, he has even said that 50 had made that statement about him.
But when we came to the actual room, we talked about, I think I irritated him earlier playing with the entourage. Yeah. With MO and them, like, cause I look.
Thanks, is that true?
Lloyd acknowledges that he is a laid-back man, but he goes beyond being lazy. Lloyd just does not want to be involved in any of the other chaos that artists face. His goal is to create music and let it do the talking, but he perceived it as a lack of drive. In fact, 50 stated in his book that he would prefer to be deceived than to be held at gunpoint.
I'd rather be robbed at gunpoint than be betrayed. Not that I suggest you try it. At least getting robbed is exciting. There's an undeniable rush when somebody pulls out their piece and growls, "Get on the fucking floor." Once it's over, provided you don't get shot, you can go tell your friends, "Yo, they just stuck me up." Your pockets might be lighter, but you'll be much stronger overall, having survived the experience. Getting betrayed is different. You don't get a great war story out of it. I've never heard anyone get hyped telling their friends, "Yo, you won't believe this, but I just got backstabbed by my mans." There are no stripes earned for that shit. When you open yourself up to someone, either financially or emotionally, and they go left on you, it's a different kind of pain. Even more dramatic than a stick-up kid physically taking something from you. Like Malcolm X said, to me, the thing that is worse than death is betrayal. You see, I can conceive death, but I could not conceive betrayal.
According to his explanation, he essentially believes that he sacrifices everything for his people and is even willing to risk his life for them. Therefore, it is worse than death when these same individuals stab him in the back for $50.
Because I find betrayal so painful, I put incredible thought and consideration into the people who surround me. As I detailed in this chapter, when I was first coming up, I made a mistake of confusing loyalty and location. It's a miscalculation a lot of people make, wanting to believe that just because someone is from the same streets as you, that they're gonna have your back forever. I learned the hard way that that's not the case. I think everyone's a little afraid of being too trustful, but I'm definitely worse than most. In my life, I feel like I've been betrayed by people I deserve better from. People I've given money to, opportunities to, love to, even life to. Because of that, for a long time, the only thing I had faith in was money. I only trusted the paper that says, "In God we trust." This is one of the reasons the theme of betrayal is so prominent in my show Power. It's an issue that's always on my mind, so much so that I even called the last season The Final Betrayal.
Not only does Lloyd Banks 50 view treachery as an unforgivable act, regardless of the victim, but this guy even severed his own son Marquis because he believed he was not faithful enough.
Actually, your son wants to sit down with you.
No, he doesn't. See, Charlamagne, you would call me. You don't call TMZ to say you want to sit down. Think about it, man. You know, you want some attention. And it's okay, you can have as much of that as you want. You know, it's just like he's been trained to believe, but you see him say in that interview, that what he was saying, he's been trained to believe that for a long time, bro. Like, you don't just wake up and say, oh, well, I don't believe what I've been believing forever.
But never be open to it?
No, I don't think the relationship works. For a long time, man, I went running behind him. I went places that he went, and he left the place.
You may be certain that his buddies have no chance if he is willing to refuse his own flesh and blood due to alleged disloyalty. Consider another member of the G Unit, Tony Yayo. Yayo was a 50s right-hand guy for years, but he was not impervious either. 50 was quick to publicly criticize him when there were suspicions of disloyalty, whether they were true or exaggerated.
If you don't do it, like if I don't give him something that he wanted murder, then he's gonna go back to doing what we did. You remember saying that to me? You don't remember saying that? Yeah, tell him Vlad or cut.
I don't want to get into all that. My look better than Vlad. You think you tell me the Vlad? My
They don't even look like the same dude to me
nice
on
for them
Vlad.
stories.
The real shit coming out.
Additionally, Young Buck played a significant role in the success of G Units in the early 2000s, but as soon as he smelled disloyalty, he was exposed.
I think that's over. I think that's done. But
What do you mean?
I think his career is finished. You know what I'm saying? And it's because, like, his temperament, he won't actually get himself. Like, right now he's in jail, but knowing who he is from the entire time that he's been around, I don't think he has what it takes to recover from, you know, like, it takes discipline at that point. Because it's when people begin to want to give you resistance. Hip-hop coaches out with the old and with the new.
You already know that 50 and Game's falling out were legendary, but even the Game, who was once the SG Unit signee, received the same treatment. The last nail in the coffin came when 50 saw that reunion picture of Lloyd Banks in the Game. 50 wrote in a post that has since been removed. What do you see when you look at this picture? I see confusion. I'm not sure if it's just me. I'm a Cancer. I don't get old with me. I never ask for trouble, but I really don't have a problem with it. I'm different. The question isn't how I feel about it, but how does Lodi Mac feel about it? Some ish is just better off left alone.